This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, is Evan Jansen. This show is always live. It's broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, we're also streaming live on YouTube right now with the whole show available on demand on our YouTube channel. Now, today we get an update on the midnight attack in Kenya's border town of Mandera. Shortly, the death toll continues to rise amongst initiates here in South Africa. We also get an update on the financial crisis in Greece. South Africa will have to import more than 50,000 tons of maize due to drought this year. Antibiotic resistance could kill millions in the years to come. And we close with a look at golf development right here in South Africa. But first, let's take a look at the day's news. At least 14 people have been killed and 11 injured by suspected Al-Shabaab militants in an overnight attack in Kenya's border town of Mandera. Local media reports say those killed were construction workers who were attacked at a residential building in Mandera Market where they live. Although nobody has claimed responsibility for the attack, Al-Shabaab militants have targeted the town several times before, leaving scores of people dead. Newly released U.S. court documents show that TV star Bill Cosby admitted 10 years ago to obtaining sedatives to give to women he wanted to have sex with. The 77-year-old admitted this during a civil case brought by a woman who said Cosby had tricked her into taking the drugs before abusing her. The case was settled for an undisclosed sum of money, but the court was asked not to release the documents. The request was granted yesterday, despite Cosby's lawyers arguing that the documents would cause severe embarrassment to him. The Communications Workers Union has welcomed the resignation of MTN Chief Executive Officer Ahmad Farouk after calling on him to step down last month. Yesterday, Farouk announced that he would be stepping down at the end of July after working less than a year in his position. His resignation comes amid the ongoing strike by employees who are demanding better wage deals as well as growing pressure from new competitors in the industry. The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras will today present new proposals to European leaders in order to end his country's debt crisis. The European Central Bank refused to increase emergency lending to Greek banks and ordered them to provide more security for existing emergency loans. Eurozone countries will hold an emergency summit in Brussels to discuss the Greek voters' rejection of the earlier bailout proposals. Meanwhile, banks in Greece will remain closed until tomorrow, and restrictions on cash withdrawals will remain in place. In tennis, top seed Novak Djokovic will return to court at midday today. After 3 hours and 2 minutes of play, Djokovic and South Africa's Kevin Anderson were forced off court due to bad light. This with a score tied at 2 sets apiece in their fourth-round match at Wimbledon yesterday. The world number one lost the first 2 sets, 7-6 and 7-6 and tie-breaks, before roaring back to win the next two, 6-1 and 6-4, to remain on course for a 25th successive Grand Slam quarter-final. 14C seed Anderson outran and outreached the shaken Serbian over the first 2 hours of the match before the defending champion fought back from 2 sets down. In cycling, Fabian Cancellara withdrew from the Tour de France after crashing in the third stage. The race was paused for about 10 minutes following a massive pile-up of some 24 riders yesterday. Spain's Joaquin Rodriguez won this dramatic third stage of 159.5 kilometers in Belgium. At least 4 riders were taken to hospital after 2 big crashes forced organizers to bring the race to a halt. This to allow competitors to catch up. And Floyd Mayweather Jr. has been stripped of the welterweight world title he won after beating Filipino Manny Pacquiao in May of this year. This after failing to comply with the rules. The World Boxing Organization says Mayweather, who improved to 48-0 by beating Pacquiao, missed the deadline by which he had to pay a $200,000 sanctioning fee from the fight and leave behind his junior middleweight title he also held. The WBO says Mayweather has to indicate which weight division he will keep, as he cannot hold titles in multiple weight classes. Mayweather, who earned over $200 million for the fight, has 2 weeks to launch an appeal. Don't forget all of those stories and more available on our website, sabc.co.za/news. Now, our top story: unidentified gunmen have killed at least 14 unarmed quarry workers in the latest attack in Kenya. The incident took place in the northeastern border town of Mandera at about 2 a.m. this morning. Unofficial figures have a further 11 people injured. The country has been battling insurgency by Al-Shabaab militants now. For a quick update on the latest, I'm joined on the line by our East African correspondent, Sarah Kimani. A very good morning to you, Sarah. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben, and thank you for having me.
Sarah, what's the latest?
Well, if I can hear you clearly, maybe just giving you an update on what happened. What we understand is there was an attack last night at about 1 a.m. local time. And these are people who have been working in the quarries. Remember, they were attacked last year in December. And so the court ruled that they must stay away from the quarries at night. So they have been ranching places within the town at an area near a market. And apparently these attackers the area they've been sleeping, fired grenades, and then they started shooting at random. And that is when 14 people were killed, 11 of them were injured, and now we understand 4 of them are going to be evacuated to Nairobi later today.
Now, Sarah, it's the holy month of Ramadan. Does Al-Shabaab normally carry out attacks during this month? Is this out of the ordinary?
Well, Al-Shabaab had warned that it would heighten its attacks within Kenya and also within Somalia during this time. We do not know if this has anything to do with the Ramadan attacks, but Mandera has been one of their targets. One, because the border between Mandera and Somalia, Mandera and Kenya. So Somalia and Kenya along the Mandera area is very porous, and so people are able to walk in and walk out. Al-Shabaab is able to walk in and walk out, strike and leave without being traced. As we speak now, they say that they're looking for them, but these are things that have happened. Remember last year, 36 people were killed in a similar fashion. 28 were gotten out of a bus and shot, most of them teachers. So it is not easy to tell whether this has anything to do with the effects that are going to be hitting Kenya during the Ramadan season.
Sarah, where is the town of Mandera, and why is it such an easy target for Al-Shabaab militants?
It's just on the border with Somalia. It is on the Kenyan side. But what happens is that the border is not manned throughout. Also, because of insecurity, you find that a lot of officers retire in the evenings and leave the border unmanned. And this is one of the reasons why sometimes the attacks happen. But also, the security officers are fleeing on the ground are not enough to be able to man such a porous border. Early this year, the Kenyan government said that it would be putting up a wall between Kenya and Somalia. That process is still ongoing. In the meantime, the attacks continue. Along the same line, there have been several terror attacks even before Al-Shabaab really came to be in the limelight like it has been now.
Sarah, thank you very much for that update. That is our East African correspondent, Sarah Kimani, giving us, of course, more insight into this attack that's happened overnight. 14 people, I can tell you, have been killed in the northeastern border town of Mandera. 11 others are injured and in hospital right now. Here are some of the views that's been coming in after this attack. It happened at 2 a.m. this morning. Shock and horror. Rayla Amolondinga says, fought and killed in midnight Mandera Al-Shabaab, more correctly homegrown terrorism attack. The Muslims are innocent, politicians are not. Hashtag Mandera. Harrison Ikunda says, Mandera, very disturbing news. Loss of lives brutally should never be condoned. At the same time, we are trying to make the economy work. Teddy Aswani says, terrorism is a psychological way of warfare. They manipulate us and change our behavior by creating fear and division in society. Well said there. Terry Bry says, it's too much. Another attack in Mandera, lost for words. Good morning, says Brian Muloni. Shadrach Kiptum says, Mandera government should really take this seriously, this attack. I think that they are taking it very, very seriously. Now, let's take a quick Now, today's pick of the day, it comes from the Star. Kenya, 14 killed in midnight Mandera Al-Shabaab attack, it says. Well, that's reported by the Star in Kenya. Today's tweet of the day comes from Teddy Aswani saying, terrorism is psychological warfare. They manipulate us and change our behavior by creating fear and division in our society. Yes, very well said, Terry. Thank you. Let's now take a look at the front pages from around the globe. We start in Europe. The Times reports that Britain will hold a silent vigil today to commemorate the 10th anniversary of attacks targeting London public transport that killed 56 people. The first suicide bombings by Islamist militants in Western Europe. In the United Kingdom, The Guardian, Germany and France scrambled to avoid a major split over Greece on Monday, even as the Eurozone delivered a damning verdict on Alexis Tsipras' landslide referendum victory on Sunday. And Angela Merkel demanded that the Greek Prime Minister put down new proposals to break the deadlock. Finally, in Washington, the Washington Post also leads with Greece. EU leaders said that they are awaiting Greece's new bailout proposals, cracking the door ajar to a compromise despite vows last week that if Greeks rejected Europe's terms, it would not be the case. Let's take a quick look at what's happening around the country here in South Africa. We start in Johannesburg, where Czech fugitive Radovan Krejcir is expected to apply for bail today at the Germiston Magistrates Court on the East Rand. Krejcir, along with 4 others, are accused of the murder of Lebanese national Sam Issa, who was gunned down during a drive-by shooting in Bedfordview 2 years ago. In Polokwane, the Limpopo businessman accused of murdering his wife is expected back in Polokwane's Magistrates Court. Ramiz Patel was granted bail of 250,000 rand. Now, today, Britain marks 10 years since the London bombings by taking a minute's silence for the 52 victims. Just 2 weeks after an attack in Tunisia highlighted the ongoing Islamist threat. 30 British citizens were among the 38 people killed when a gunman went on the rampage at a popular Tunisian beach resort on the 26th of June. Britain's worst terror incident since 4 suicide bombers attacked the London transport network in 2005. You're watching Newsroom. We will be back with you after a short break. The Deputy Minister for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Obed Bapela, has condemned irresponsible people who operate illegal initiation schools with what he says no regard for the law and society or the safety of children, but were motivated by the greed for money. National death toll for the 2015 winter initiation season now stands at 16. This despite the National Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs launching a zero tolerance campaign. Deaths have occurred at both legal and illegal initiation schools. 141 initiates have also been admitted to various hospitals in the province due to botched circumcisions since the start of winter. Compounding the problem is a spate of abductions and the continued operation of illegal initiation schools. Now, from Nelspruit, we are joined by the Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders and the leader of the National Task Team for Initiation, Ngozi Sipho Mahlangu. Very good morning to you, Mr. Mahlangu. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Mr. Johnson and the viewers of SABC.
Deputy Minister Obed Bapela says there's a national crisis looming in front of our eyes. Your reaction, is this a national crisis?
I think, yes, it is a national crisis, but it is a crisis that we are all working on together with the Deputy Minister. I mean, we've been working on this for the past 3 years. Yes, there's been challenges. We did issue a statement that said there is zero tolerance to deaths. And that has been our aim, and it is still our aim, even though there is still one death too many. But I must say that as the task team and the department and traditional leaders at large, there is a lot that we've done. We've seen improvements this year, despite the challenges that are there. If you look at the figures in 2013, we lost about 116 boys, and that was way out of hand, and we've worked very hard where last year the number was reduced to 46 and currently we're standing at 16. It is still one too many, but we are doing everything in our hands, even though people still find those gaps that they can use to be able to take advantage of this noble culture of ours.
How are we going to come to terms with illegal initiation schools, Mr. Mahlangu?
Look, I think we've got monitoring teams, that is initiation coordinating forums in each and every province that are at work, checking whether schools are legal or not, checking whether traditional surgeons are properly trained, making sure that the medical staff is also assisting us with this. So we're doing everything in our power, but we are also calling on people to work closely with us, especially communities, to make sure that these illegal schools are not allowed to operate. And if parents, especially those that have gone to initiation schools, if they know that they've taken a child to initiation school, they must take extra caution. They must always be there. They must always be visible in those areas where initiation schools are being run, to be able to assist whenever there are complications. Because in most cases, you'd find that there would be chronic illnesses that may have not been reported in other areas, even though we've said it is mandatory that each and every child that goes to an initiation school should have done pre-screening, pre-medical screening. We found that there were cracks where in other instances people had not done pre-screening as we had prescribed as traditional leaders and the Deputy Minister. So, but we are slowly closing in those loopholes, and we're also arresting those that are running illegal schools. We are closing down all illegal schools that we find and moving those children to properly registered and legal schools. So it's all hands on deck from everybody that is involved. I mean, we're working day and night to make sure that our boys are safe.
What advice do you give to parents in this case, and also with regards to some of the abductions that we see?
Look, the advice that we are giving to parents is that if they are taking their child to an initiation school, they must go to a traditional council, check with the traditional council if that school is legal or not. And as parents, they should take it as their responsibility to make sure that children are pre-screened and they are properly prepared, and that consent has been given, and even consent from a child has been received. That's the advice that we could give to parents, that they must be vigilant against those illegal initiation schools. I mean, most of us know them in our communities, but most parents would keep quiet and not say anything around those illegal schools. So we are saying, let's all work together, the community and traditional leaders and all government authorities, to make sure that we clamp down on what is happening. I mean, when our boys go to initiation schools, we are hoping that they will come back being better men. And the only way that they can be better men is for all of us to be responsible, for all of us to participate and make sure that this is a safe passage. As a parent, you cannot afford to have your child that is in an initiation school and you don't have a proper monitoring system of how you would know in terms of the health of that child. Because as a parent, if you find that there are problems, it is easier for you to respond much quicker than a person who is not necessarily a parent to that child.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That is the Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders and the leader of the National Task Team for Initiation, Nkosi Sipho Mahlangu, join us live there from our studio in Nelspruit. Now, South Africa will have to import, that is, at least 50,000 tons of white maize from Mexico this year as severe drought ravages production in this country. Currently, South Africa has enough maize supplies to last till June next year. The price of domestic maize has reached a record high, costing more than 3,000 rand a ton now. The first shipment is expected to arrive next month, and 5 more shipments expected between September and December of this year. Now, from our studios in Pretoria, we're joined by the CEO of Grain South Africa, Mr. Jannie de Villiers. A very good morning to you, Mr. de Villiers. Very concerning, isn't it?
Yes, Eben, that's not very frequently that South Africa have to import our basic foodstuffs. But we had a terrible drought in the previous raining season. You know, the planting started in October last year. And we are basically having just more than enough white maize, but we're short about 800,000 tons of yellow maize. So I think the cargo that you're referring to coming from Mexico is maybe just a safety precaution for some of the buyers, or maybe it's a speculant that is just trying to make a few bucks because the prices are very high at the moment.
Are we going to see the prices on the shelves of stores of basic staples? Are we going to see those prices increase in the next couple of months?
Yeah. Yes, Eben. I think if you compare, for instance, the current white maize prices to last year, this time around, we talk about 70% increase. And that is definitely going to end up on the consumer shelves. And I think the poor people in the country that consumes a lot of the maize meal are going to be hurt in this year specifically.
How is it going to affect businesses, Mr. de Villiers, especially those that use maize in their raw products?
Yeah, I think, Eben, when you look at the consumer basket in the consumer price index, about 73% is maize-based. In other words, we talk about poultry and eggs that derive from feed. You talk about all the dairy products. You talk about all the meat products. So a big chunk of our food basket is actually maize price derived. And all of those products are going to increase substantially in the year to come. Probably in the next 3 to 6 months, we will see all of those on the shelves.
How do we overcome this problem with drought? Surely there are ways and means elsewhere in the world that we can overcome this?
Well, overcome is, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do, but overcome is very difficult if there's no rain. We have recently seen some of the seed companies release a new drought-tolerant variety of maize that they're busy testing in South Africa. The farmers are very happy about it. We keep on teaching the farmers more conservative agriculture practices to maintain the moisture in the soil. And then there's crop rotation and things like that. But even at the end of the day, the plants need rain, and that is the sort of the key factor for a decent crop to have enough food.
I see emerging young farmers in the northwest have been hit especially hard with regards to this season. Is that the case? And is it a conundrum because we're not attracting enough young farmers, are we?
Yes, Eben, we're struggling to get those farmers on a commercial level, and some of them can't get access to finance because they don't own the land. They work communal land or they work state land, and it's really a problem for those guys. And when they use their sort of their savings, or they go and borrow money and they don't make a crop and they can't pay their debt, then they're out of business. So this is really a bad thing for especially our new farmers there. And in the northwest, a lot of the farmers also have a cattle component. And there's, for this winter, the cattle is not going to have food, so it's really going to be a struggle. And I mean, I really feel for those guys, and we hope that government is going to come to the table and help us to assist them to plant the next crop to try and get out of this trouble.
Are we going to see food shortages in the future? Are you afraid of that?
Even no, I think, currently in the world there's plenty of stocks available. The prices are relatively low in the world. But because of this, we can import. The infrastructure is still good, so there's no problem with food shortages, but the price is going to be high. I think we also need to be very responsible in the way in which we do the land reform to make sure that the land remain in production. But I don't think I've got a worry that we will have food shortages in the country. There might be temporary high prices.
And apart from Mexico, which are the other places that we're looking to import maize from?
Yeah, we can import yellow maize from almost any exporting country, especially Argentina. We're currently importing from them, even the Black Sea countries. America has got a lot of yellow maize, but the white maize is a problem. Even it's only the southern part of Africa that's really, and Mexico using it in the tortilla business, that's using it for human consumption. So America's got a little bit of white maize, but they normally export it to Mexico. I'm actually surprised Mexico is supplying us a bit. Kenya sometimes also have surpluses. At the moment, Zambia has got a little bit of surplus, but it's almost a similar size as the shortage in Zimbabwe. So we assume that Zambia will supply Zimbabwe in this coming season. But it's very difficult to get white maize. It's not readily available in the world.
Mr. de Villiers, thank you very much for joining us today. It is a little bit concerning, but as you say, we've got time to arrest this problem. That is the CEO of Grain South Africa, Mr. Jannie de Villiers, talking about a 50,000-ton shortfall in white maize here in South Africa this year, mostly because of drought. Now, Eurozone finance ministers say they expect to hear new proposals from Greece after the country rejected the terms of a bailout on Sunday with a referendum. Here are some of your views on the matter. This is what Ed says: choosing hopeful uncertainty over hopeless certainty. Good luck, Greece. Frances Annabelle says, Greece, the spectre of an honest man standing for truth as he sees it in spite of opposition throws me into a regular fit of admiration. EJPP says, by sticking with Euro, Greece looking at another 10 years of deep recession. How to kickstart an economy with overpriced currency. The absolute horror, yes. So Andrew Wilson says, that's it, folks. Looks like we are about to hit a worldwide recession. Looks like, I think you might be spot on there, Andrew Wilson. Athens Look says, Greek debt crisis. French, German leaders urge Greece to offer quick proposals. Chakalotos named the new finance minister. Now let's take a quick look. Of course, we'll get an update on Greece a little bit later in our show, but let's take a quick look at what's happening on Newsroom's Facebook page today. A women's forum has embarked on an awareness campaign to clarify the role women hold in the circumcision ritual, especially in the Eastern Cape. This comes after the number of initiate deaths has increased to 14 now, 16 rather, with more being admitted to hospitals across the province. Then more than 600 elephant tusks and 86 rhino horns have been set alight in Maputo in Mozambique. The Mozambique government says the action is aimed at demonstrating its commitment to fighting poaching. And a United Nations Commission of Inquiry into the circumstances surrounding the death of the organization's second Secretary General has placed even greater interest in Dag Hammarskjöld's plane that was shot down in an aerial attack in 1961. For more news updates, follow us on Facebook, or you can go to sabc.co.za/news for all the latest updates. Now, July is Nelson Mandela Month and International Mandela Day. The late South African president's birthday is, of course, on the 18th of July. Now, in honor of this, a new widget has been launched by SABC Digital News. The Mandela Diaries is a widget that started as an effort to digitize Madiba's journeys when he was alive. This month, we're going to take a look at most of them. Here's one of them.
Young people discussing the huge Madiba footprint, learning what drove this elder statesman, his noble struggle and ultimate defeat of apartheid. from a young prince of the Tembu clan in Vezo to the world's most famous prisoner and ultimately the country's first democratic president.
Gives us a chance as young people to share our views on Nelson Mandela so that we can be able to go back to our countries and help change the world.
And it teaches me that I should also be determined and persevere to get what I want to achieve in life.
It gives youth from all over the world to basically look at Nelson Mandela's life and learn from it.
And it's through them that the legacy of Mandela will endure.
We don't want it to be just the poor receiving from the rich. We want it to be about people sharing what they have with others beyond just money.
There are many activities planned to celebrate Mandela Day here and abroad ahead of his birthday on July 18th. Solofelo Matibedi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
From humble beginnings, this selfless icon altered the history of the world, freed a country, and united a nation. He taught us humility and forgiveness. To the world, he is Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. But to us, he is simply Tata Madiba.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom. Greek voters have overwhelmingly refused the deal of billions of euros in exchange for more austerity measures. Yesterday, Greek Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis resigned just a day after Greece took to the polls. 61% of voters rejected the terms of the bailout that international lenders offered. But with no bailout agreed, Greek banks could run out of money within days. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande are desperate to keep Greece in the Eurozone, as no country has ever left their currency. But as talks are set to resume, this could become a real possibility. Now, joining us from Brussels is our correspondent there, Sandra Guthman-Gonzalez. A very good morning to you, Sandra. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Good to join you.
The refusal of this billion-euro bailout, what does it mean for Greece, and then what does it mean for wider Europe?
Well, that's the big question, and European leaders are scratching their heads, first of all, as to how this happened. They didn't expect this no vote to be the result of the referendum on Sunday. And they're also trying to figure out what it means, because, of course, there was huge controversy that the question was confusing, that it was the basis of the question was a creditor's proposal that was in relation to Greece's second bailout program, which expired last Tuesday in the absence of a financial rescue deal. So for the moment, the position among Eurozone leaders is to wait for the latest proposal from Athens. They want to know what it was that Greeks rejected, what is going to be on the table now. There was a proposal last week from the Prime Minister's office in Athens for a new bailout program to come from an entirely different rescue fund called the ESM, the European Stability Mechanism. And that's going to involve a fresh set of reforms and a completely new draft. And that is what the leaders of the Eurozone countries are hoping to get a sense from Athens today when Prime Minister Tsipras arrives here in Brussels later on.
Do you expect a more favorable bailout deal to be reached within the next couple of days, or are we too far down the road?
Well, both sides are digging their heels. For one thing, the finance minister on the Greek side has changed. It's no longer Yannis Varoufakis. It is Mr. Euclid Tsakalotos, who many believe is a much more Marxist finance minister, as he's from the far more radical left side of Syriza, the party in power, and may dig his heels on debt relief. That is a huge bit of controversy. It's almost a taboo here in Europe, but we know that Athens wants to put it on the table. Whether this is something that is feasible now is an entirely different matter. We don't think that there's going to be a deal signed anytime soon, even in the next few days. The European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has just been speaking to the Parliament in Strasbourg, and he said that today is not about coming up with a solution, It is about restoring order. There's going to be no solution overnight. All sides need to put their heads together now and come to the negotiating table with fresh minds. He said he was disappointed that Greek negotiators walked out of talks last Saturday when that referendum was called, and that we have to start over from scratch, essentially.
Is Europe prepared, or is Europe preparing itself for a Eurozone without Greece?
Well, it's an interesting question. There are several countries that have hardened their positions, very diverging views on this. There are 18 partners in the Eurozone. Germany, Finland, Slovakia, and some of the Baltic states have taken a notably harder line, whereas France, Italy, and Spain have adopted a more conciliatory tone. We know that there are hardliners in the Merkel administration who believe that this could be a time to consider cutting Greece loose. They know that there are 87 billions of euros in losses in store for Germany alone if Greece is let go of the Eurozone. But there are some who believe that Athens, in choosing no, is ready to commit some kind of economic suicide, and therefore have started to table these plan Bs about how to cut Greece loose, but also provide emergency funding. So this Brexit scenario is very much alive in some European capitals. Having said that, this really is the worst case scenario, and they want to allow the prospect of at least trying to negotiate with Athens, with the administration that has received this no mandate, whatever that might mean. We're going to hear today to come up with a solution. A financial program is really what everyone wants to see in Greece. The banks are shut. They have hardly any deposits left, and a rescue package is going to save the day. It may not be soon, but this is the best scenario everyone's pulling for.
How's this affecting the workings of the Greece economy? Imports, exports, and so forth. Is it having a direct effect on it?
Absolutely, and we're already seeing that Greeks are struggling to live life with little cash. Capital controls have been in place in Greece for over a week now. People were limited to withdrawing around €60 a day, but reports on the ground suggest that some ATMs are running out of €20 banknotes. So in effect, people have only been able, some people, to withdraw €50 a day. Now that's only the cash transactions. Businesses are struggling to import. There are food shortages in some supermarkets. And of course, all of this is getting worse because the European Central Bank hasn't raised the level of emergency liquidity that are going to Greek lenders. It stood at 89 billion euros last time. So this was 2 weeks ago when that cap was raised but frozen. And every day people are withdrawing money and seeing and feeling the effects of that tightening of the ECB screw. We know from yesterday's decision in Frankfurt that the European Central Bank has now raised the haircuts on the collateral in Greek banks, meaning the Greek bonds that were held and swapped for emergency funding are no longer worth the same value as before. So this is, in some ways, a political strategy, but it does make life harder for Greeks. And we're looking at a humanitarian crisis unfolding here as well.
Talking about that humanitarian crisis, I see more than half of under 25s in Greece are unemployed with very little prospects of getting employment. Are we going to see, on top of the migrant issue that countries in Europe have. We're now going to see a surge in economic migrants out of Greece as well.
Absolutely. And already Greeks, Spaniards, Italians, all these countries that have a very, very high unemployment rate, particularly among the youth, have seen a huge exodus of their young workforce spread across the Eurozone and outside as well. Germany alone has a very high number of economic migrants from countries like Greece and Spain. And you're absolutely right, Eben, there are going to be larger waves of Greeks leaving the Eurozone simply because they just do not have the prospect at the moment for a better future. That is what the Eurozone leaders say they want to see. They want Greece stable again. They want to see at least that hope that the economy will be pulled out of recession because it has now spiraled into recession. And the financial assistance program that they hope will be the case is going to help at least young people feel that there's a chance that their economy in their country can back to a solid footing.
Finally, quickly, how's holidaymakers being affected by this?
Well, there have been all kinds of tourist warnings issued by the UK office, for instance, saying, you know, take as much cash as you can because you may find yourselves unable to withdraw. Greek banks have advised tourists that, you know, they are not part of that withdrawal limit, but they find that ATMs across the country often don't have the cash to give them. So holidaymakers, some are flocking to Greece. It's a great time of year, and there are flights going to Athens and the other islands at very high prices. But again, there is that fear that Greece is going through a very turbulent moment, not a dangerous one, but a turbulent one, and some have decided against traveling there.
Sandra, thank you very much for that update this morning. That's our European correspondent coming to us from Brussels via Skype. That is Sandra Guthman-Gonzalez giving us an update on Greece. Of course, the crisis is escalating. Some talking about a global recession. What do you think? Well, I don't know. Anyhow, we move on. We finished today with golf development in South Africa. It's taken a major leap forward with the success of the IGT Golf Tour in this country. The IGT marks its 6th year as the country's premier developmental tour. During this time, countless young golfers, both male and female, have used the tour as a platform to launch professional careers. The aim is to provide the best tournament conditions to prepare young talent to compete at golf's highest levels. Now, I'm joined in studio today by Swais du Plooy, who is the Tour Commissioner, and Glenn Herter, who is the Tournament Director. Very good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning, Aaron. Good morning, viewers.
Swais, this is kind of your brainchild, isn't it? Tell us, what is the IGT Tour all about?
We started 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and we identified in South Africa that the gap between amateur golf and professional golf, there was no tournament for this. So basically, as an amateur, you've got to Q school, get your card, and then hope to make it. And we know what those numbers is. Even I don't have to tell it to you. I started studying the American tours, what they called mini tours. We now call it the developmental tours. The word mini tour has sort of gone, and it's called the developmental tours. I had a lot of input from the Americans and helping us to set up the tours and advice and. But it's basically the gap between amateur and pro. That's now, what we cater for.
Glenn, you're tournament director. You work with these young up-and-coming players. You see them come through the amateur ranks. What are they saying about the IGT Tour?
Oh, no, they're loving it. You know, it's giving them tournament time. We started now on the Cape, and what it's done for them is they don't have to travel up to Joburg anymore to play their tournaments. They can stay at home, save some costs. But the main thing for them is they're getting tournament experience, which is the biggest key if you want to become a professional.
So the relationship with other tours in South Africa, we know we've got a lot of golf and a lot of big golf going on in South Africa. What's the relationship like with IGT and the bigger tours in South Africa?
Yeah, it took a while to get a relationship. It's nice to say today we've got good relationships. SAGA, the South African Golf Association, which now is known as Golf RSA, we actually, in a committee, part of the structures, we do talk. This year we haven't played events where the main events was. RGT's main goal is to feed Sunshine. We support the Big Easy Tour. All our players that actually come through us became Big Easy players and became Sunshine players. But we would like to see it grow further.
Now, I understand you guys are in Joburg this week. You've got some announcements that you're going to make. Are you going to let the cat out the bag a little bit today, Glenn?
No, I'm going to keep that on ice for now. But yeah.
He's keeping it very close to the chest there. So, running golf tournaments, expensive business. It's not something that takes a little bit of money. Is there an appetite among sponsors in South Africa for the kinds of events that you're putting up?
Even now, I mean, you go, and I know the Sunshine structures, and I mean, I know they struggle to find sponsors and to get the tournament base to 30-plus tournaments. You look at Big Easy currently, they were sponsored. I think it's their third year now that has been sponsored sort of by the Sunshine Tour. You find a small odd sponsor where we've got, we're lucky where Sixon came on board and Rhode Island came on board. But from a major sponsor point of view towards players' prize money, yeah, and in fact, I think it's a problem worldwide in golf. I'm not sure, where the problem lies, if the exposure is not enough, or it's the way that we treat the sponsors, but in South Africa, it's a huge problem.
I think the financial outlook around the world isn't looking too great, and I think big business, the first place they cut is normally sponsorship, and I saw a stat that even the golf equipment manufacturers are in a little bit of trouble over the next couple of years because people are simply not taking up the game as much as we saw in the Tiger era, simply because it's a little bit expensive. But part of RGT is about that accessibility and bringing new people into the game, isn't it?
Yeah. So especially on the Cape side, the guys don't have to travel up anymore. They can stay at home and save costs. So that's the biggest factor for them. But otherwise, yeah, our tournaments are accessible to anyone with a handicap of 6 or less, pros and amateurs. So.
I'm coming to play in the tournament then. So just quickly, just to put the viewers in the picture, how expensive is it for a young professional to play 1 week? Say he has to travel to Johannesburg or to Nelspruit at Leopard Creek, for instance, to go and play for 1 week. How much money does a guy have to take out of his pocket to do that? Don't think people realise.
Yeah, we speak to parents on a daily basis, and even this is a process. It's not a 1 tournament, 3 tournament, or you become a scratch golfer and suddenly you're now a pro golfer. It's a process. Like I said to Dad the other day, I asked him, do you think the American average age is today, the main tour in the world? And that average age is 35 years old. Now, that doesn't tell you something of the investment that you're going to put into your kit over the period. People has to rethink that they want to have that magic within a year. You currently look in South Africa, guys on the Sunshine Tour is about 200,000. If you look in the amateur scene, guys want to get their Springbok collars, they have to go to coastal events, 180,000. Then you look at the model that we created 6 years ago is our events in Gauteng is exclusively in Gauteng.
Yeah.
So the kid basically doesn't have to travel and stay over. It's a tournament entry, but it's still expensive. You're looking at IGT, we're playing close to 40 events a year. I would say costs roughly about 60 to 70,000 rand.
It's expensive. It's expensive to stay there. But just what's next for the IGT, or not what's next? I don't want to preempt you again, but where would you guys like to take it?
Well, from the Cape side, we're running 10 events this year. We're looking to expand that to 20 events for the next season. We've been very fortunate this year to have the House of Machines on board. They've put up the first prize for all our events of 12,000. So we're looking to grow that into the next season and double the size of our tour down there.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us this morning. We've run out of time, so as the players, the Tour Commissioner of the IGT Tour, and Glenn Herter, who's Tournament Director, joining us live here on Newsroom this morning, talking about the IGT Tour, also golf development here in South Africa. Now, Big story making the rounds on social media now. Bill Cosby testified in 2005 that he got quaaludes with the intent of giving them to young women that he wanted to have sex with, and he admitted to giving the sedative to at least one person. Here are some of the views that have been on social media. Some have been very scathing, some we couldn't even put up. Jada says, I see people saying that Bill Cosby was a role model to their kids. This is why we don't put TV stars on pedestals. Hashtag Bill Cosby. Helen says, so where are the people that were loudly disbelieving the women accusing Bill Cosby of abuse and rape now? Lost your voices? Hashtag rape culture. California says, if you had told me there was a celebrity who was a serial predator in a million years, I wouldn't have thought it was Cosby. Hashtag Billy Cosby. Yes, it's the story of the day. It's doing the rounds on social media. Unbelievable. Sedatives. And then abusing women. That's what we call date rape here in South Africa. That's where I leave you. At SABC Newsroom is where you can send me what you think. This show is broadcast live from our studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.